I'm opening. We have an eye, sort of a nostril, 2 teeth. One of the teeth has a small cavity. Close call, folks, but I think we got here just in time.
Presented by Maria Menounos and Kevin Undergaro. This is Anatomy of a Movie. In-depth discussions and breakdowns of various movie titles. And now that you've seen the movie, let the dissection begin.
Hello, everyone. This is Kevin Undergaro, substituting for John Comerford. Very excited to do the Anatomy of Movie.
You sound it.
Nebraska edition.
He's getting in the tone.
Thank you.
He's accepting the tone.
He's building up.
Sarah's a trained artist. Thank you very much.
It's when you just adapt yourself into what.
And this is Nebraska.
I want to introduce the rest of the panel before I get into my thoughts and feelings on this film. I'd like to start with the person next to me who I have a great deal of experience with. How you and I went from AfterBuzz TV, The Jersey Shore, to Nebraska, Anatomy of a Movie, I don't know.
It's been a journey.
We rock high-low, baby. Right next to me. Who's next to me?
I'm Roxy Stryer.
There you go. And next to Roxy.
Ooh, do I get to go now? Sarah Stretton, nice to see you all again.
And of course,
Dimitri Panos, good to be here. This is great. Battled 2-hour traffic to get here. That's how awesome this show is and how worth it. I love it.
This movie, you know, the reason I'm here is I'm a friend of Alexander Payne's, and one of his biggest fans. But I loved all of his movies. Yeah, could very well be my favorite.
Yeah, it's a good flick. Yeah,
up there.
Your favorite, huh?
Could very well be. I mean, I love so much of his work, and maybe it's one of the things where because this is new, it's fresh.
Yeah,
it's something that's exciting me. You know, it's the next new shiny object, but at the same time, I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah, it's really good. I mean, just personally, I really, at its essence, it's a road trip movie. For me, tons of layers, and it's interesting. It's like when I first saw it, Bruce Dern, he's the lead, but once I let everything sink in, this story is really about the son. It's really about his journey and his acceptance of his dad, his family, which, as you learn, is wacky. Sort of kind of, but that comes out as this journey goes on. And by the end of this movie, I found myself, it was poignant. I was laughing. I was emotional. I just really loved everything about this movie too. Yeah, very well done.
It's incredibly unique, to say the least. When I actually went to see it with Sarah, and we were sitting there trying to decide what other films it reminded us of, and I came up with nothing. It's not like his other films, and it's not like any other film I have seen, at least not recently. So I thought that was great. I was a huge fan of the film. It really touched my heart. It touched me in the theater, and then when I went home, I thought more and more about it, and it grew on me, and it continues to grow on me today. So I loved it.
Sarah, please weigh in.
I thought it was terrible. No, I really did like it. I saw it with Roxy, and I liked the simplicity of it. I liked the story. To me, it was so crazy that we haven't seen a film that's black and white and simple in so long. And I'm so much more comfortable now with the crazy films, with like the aliens and the battles. And to me, I'm almost more used to that world than just the world of a town like in Nebraska or in Wyoming or any of these other states. And that was really shocking to me. That like I'm from the US. I've traveled quite a bit all over the country, and to me that places in my own country can feel so alien as compared to films that actually deal with aliens, and I'm like, oh, this is normal. Right. I see this every day. Oh, crazy Godzilla. It's fine. And this to me was more crazy and more unique. I also like the reception of it. I feel like people really are giving it a lot of credit. I'm a little confused because nominations came out. And this is put in the category of let's be clear as to what nominations have come out.
Yes.
Because when you say nominations, let's not let everybody think they are the Academy Award nominations. The big Golden Globe nominations were today, and they've had the SAG Awards and such.
And so where do we fit in? Where does Nebraska fit in?
It's fitting, and it has a couple categories. I probably have the list on here somewhere. I think screenplays on there. I want to say directors on there.
Yeah, I see you guys have it on the topic board.
Actor.
It is. I wanted to talk primarily about the fact that the genre it's put in is comedy. And for me, I came out of this movie, while I did find it funny and while I saw scenes were hilarious, thinking it was a family drama.
I agree with you. I think it seems like all of today's comedies have this poignancy to them, more so than in comedies in the past. My knee jerk is that this was not a comedy. There's absolutely comedic undertones, but I felt like it was a drama with comedic undertones rather than a comedy with dramatic undertones. But, who knows? I mean, maybe that's how they were able to justify against all the other films. Maybe if they didn't put it in that genre, maybe it wouldn't get in to the awards race, and they felt like that would be shorting this movie. So maybe that's the reason why I wish I knew. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. But I was going to say Payne also was very clear when he was being interviewed talking about how this was a comedy.
He says that all the time. That's his personality. I mean, but
I think that has something to do with why it was put in that section.
I'm sure
and
that's
I also
why.
agree with you that maybe if it was in the dramatic section, that it wouldn't have gotten the notoriety or been nominated, and that could be part of it as well.
I mean, obviously with some of those master shots of the two brothers and the uncle and the father all watching TV with their like mouths open, and it clearly was. Yes, it was very funny, but I mean, I was choked up on many occasions.
I agree.
I thought it was a beautiful movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you look at the marketing, they marketed it as sort of a comedy. I mean, it's one way to try to get an audience into a black and white feature. I mean, period. I mean, even though the artist may have won like Best Picture, when you look at its grosses, it's two major things. That movie was black and white and it was silent. So when you're coming in Nebraska, you can't hide the fact that it's color. So I think they try to hype up the comedy aspects of it. And let's just, I can go in all day about the Golden Globes and what I feel about them. It's almost like a People's Choice Awards.
Well, let's say that because we are going to talk about the awards and stuff.
Yeah.
There's more specifics of it, but sticking to your point, talk more about the aspects of the comedy versus this being a drama.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Just the fact that, what your thoughts on it being a comedy versus a drama.
Yeah, I mean, if they're only going to give so many slots to drama, I mean, look, when it comes to the Academy Awards, the mere fact that you're able to nominate 10 movies, I think that this movie is going to be in there for Best Picture as a nomination. Putting it under the comedy, because American Hustle was also into the same category. And I wrote a friend today going, who knew that American Hustle was a comedy and or a musical or both? I had no idea. And I think if you're going to try to squeeze Nebraska in because it's a worthy film, again, I don't know why they would have picked it over. I don't have the nominations up in front of me. But I would have, I don't know. To me, if they need to put it in there, it's a comedy. But I agree with everybody here. To me, there were some laugh out loud moments to it. I mean, you talk about the characterizations and like sitting in front of the TV. When they stole that generator,
It's funny. It's very slapstick.
I mean, I was crying with laughter during that scene. When the woman who plays the mom, when she goes in front of the tombstone and lifts up her dress, goes, "Look what you were missing." Again, that's laugh riotous to me. So, to your point, I think it's a comedy that's driven by character, drama, and poignancy. And it's refreshing that you can sort of kind of have that in today's world.
That's right. We should embrace that. The fact that it's refreshing that we don't have to label these things anymore. Right. That we can laugh and we can cry. Whereas in the past, it's always been that one, you have to fit into that one label or you're out.
Yeah, you're either an Anchorman 2 or a Hangover, but you're not putting Nebraska in that category.
Right, and I also don't see this as like Election. I get it was funny. It had some poignant moments, yes, that we could all relate to, but it was to me, that was more funny.
And I'll say the same
dark.
thing about Descendants. Descendants had its comedy to it as well. Especially when they're sneaking around Matthew Lillard's house in Hawaii. I mean, there's some stuff.
Matthew Lillard's job and the billboards and stuff.
Yeah.
Sarah, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just going to say two things. First of all, I think that's a very good point, that the movie shouldn't be so categorized. It has to be complete drama or complete comedy the whole time. But at the same time, when they're labeling this as a comedy, their trailers are tailored to it being funny. And then you have all of this media coming out about how they have two actors who are on SNL who are departing from their comedic stereotypes and going for these dramatic and totally different roles. It's this juxtaposition that doesn't quite fit together to me. And then on the other hand, when last year we saw Silver Linings Playbook,
another
which
movie that just
was a
had
great
funny
movie,
moments, but was beautiful.
and that was, I believe, classified as a drama. And that to me was just as funny as this.
I agree.
And just as dramatic as this. So what makes this one a comedy, that one a drama? And I think it comes down to politics and where it can fit in nominations, and they have to make those decisions.
Would you be so kind? See if you can bring up the Golden Globe nominations, and we can actually whittle down like the drama and what they put in the comedy or musical. Look, bottom line is this is a character piece movie. It's very character driven, and Bob Nelson was a sketch writer. So you get where his comedy comes from, and he's acerbic. When he was talking about like in putting this movie together, he actually just read stories about how elderly people went to Publishers Clearinghouse to pick up their winnings. And first off, to me, that's sort of kind of comedic and sad at the same time. Does anybody here know of anybody who's ever won a Publishers Clearinghouse winning?
No, but I'm convinced that I'm going to.
Keep buying those magazines. Okay. That's awesome. So he's like wondering like what would happen if your dad was the guy insisting that he won, and that he went over there, and like what would you do? And if you were if you were the daughter to this father, would you take him on this journey if I was the son and this is what he wanted to do? I mean, to me, I think what really works in Nebraska is that it's a road trip and it is a bonding. It is the father-son bonding. And actually, it's more
and revealing and getting to know each other.
Absolutely. But I think it's also the family, and the audience gets to go along this journey. And I think one thing that was very interesting that Bob Nelson had said is, again, I forget that character's name. The woman who plays the wife, she was just so good.
Her name is June Squibb.
Sorry, so as Kate Grant, okay, she was only in the first quarter of the movie or in the original script. And man, am I so happy that they changed, or that he had the foresight. He goes, I needed to put comedy in. And I needed to figure out a way to get her into Nebraska to where they were. And he goes, I'm so glad that they did. And me too, because the character at the very beginning of the movie, you sort of kind of look at her as geez, he had to live with that for how many years? And he did it because she sort of comes off like rough, very rough around the edges. But as the movie goes on, you actually see that she is the rock. She's the glue to this family, and she loves the family, and she loves her husband so much.
Right.
She defends that family to great aplomb.
Absolutely. And to that point, I think that there's nothing black and white about this movie other than the fact that it's black and white. And like you're saying, at first you think this about her, and then you change your mind about how you're feeling.
Right.
Same thing whether it's a comedy or a drama.
Right.
It's hard to tell. It's one of those, you also mentioned this before, you kind of laugh, but it's not funny. It's a little sad. You laugh until you cry almost. Yeah. And that's what this movie leaves you with the feeling of, which was something to me that I think, yes, you can say comedy, we can fight for a comedy or drama, but it doesn't really matter what it is labeled as, except for when you're trying to give it an award. Otherwise, we don't need to put a label on it.
No.
If you're my Grammy, you want to call it a dramedy, that's totally fine too. But I just think that it was amazing how much it was realistic to life, where in your whole day, not everything has to be funny. Not everything has to be depressing. Sometimes the depressing things are the most funny things, and sometimes the funniest things are the most upsetting things.
And how many times in your life, like, some of my good friends, they're funny just because they're funny. They're not comedians, but they're characters. And, and people can be funny without having to get up on stage or be a Will Ferrell. And no offense, I'm just saying that characters are funny. People in their natural element are funny. So if they're watching TV, the little quirks that they have, like those brothers, the brothers are fantastic because they're like that whole, but the whole thing about how long did it take you to get down here? What? Oh, we can get down here in like an hour, and they spent a good chunk of the movie arguing about that stuff. It's classic. They're great, but they're great characters, and the comedy comes because of their characters. It's not because they're saying necessarily funny lines, so to speak.
No,
it's character-driven comedy.
And that's patience in directing too.
And I wanted to go back to one of the first things that you said, Dimitri, is also that this wasn't just, although it was very strongly about a father and son, it was also about bringing back together the whole family unit, which is why it was a good choice for them to bring back in June, or Kate. And I thought that was illustrated very well, that they kept the brother tied in, they kept the mom tied in. And you really got to see them shift from, like, whether it was driving alone to him driving his dad to them four piling in that car together. And the shift of even, like, you know, who's driving, who's taking the wheel in that final moment when his dad is behind the wheel, really taking on that father figure and being in control of his life again. So I did want to point that out. They brought in that theme. They didn't just stick with these two people. They really brought in the whole family.
And think of what he demonstrated with just the driving. So it's interesting because I didn't realize it now until you said it. You know, you start out, it's the son driving. Then it's, I know you see the brother drive, but then
you have the parents in the back seat.
Parents in the back seat, right? So they're all grown up. And then we have this role reversal where they're the two little pranksters stealing the unit, which we all said was funny, the air compressor. But we see that the mom steps up in that moment, totally plays it cool, covers her ass, gets them out of the gym, and drives the car and says, "No, I'll keep driving." And in that moment, we understand, like, you know something? This is more than just an old crab and this miserable old lady. Like, no, she's been the rock, as you said. She's every bit as capable of running this family. And then, and as you said, Sarah, and then with the nice ending is like, this is this last hurrah where dad gets to drive again.
Yeah, and I think
after his journey.
It's a circle. It's
Beautiful.
how you would see it in the beginning of time and how they bring it back.
And it's the son's arc. It's the son coming to the full realization that he has a pride in his dad. That's why he gets him the red truck. That's why okay, Dad, this is in your name. Jadis, get down. But you can see, I mean, again, it's a very funny scene,
right?
But at the same time, very poignant. It means so much. And listen, June Squibb, that Kate character, to me, another great scene in that movie is when she tells that family.
Oh, so stop right there. Absolutely. You know, I'm so with you on that, because
that to me is when I said, So
I'm watching this movie and I'm saying to my girlfriend the whole time as she's terrorizing, I'm like, you know, this is what you do to us guys. You terrorize us, then we end up withdrawing in our own worlds because we're just so broken, and we just want to be in the garage tinkering in our trucks. And sure enough, between the writing and Alexander Payne, it all becomes revealed to me as to how it works.
Yeah.
So then when the poor guy, and I wish John Comerford were doing this with us, because I feel bad, because John has always been the one to go out and do all these nice things for people, you know, and I know that I'm always out doing things for people. And, you know, when he's cornered and we want money, he owes us money, he was a drunk, you started this business, you needed money, we gave you money, no. And who comes in but Ma Bacher?
Yeah.
You know, Mom comes in and goes,
great,
hey, excuse what? You know, you horrible people. He was a nice man. He worked on your cars for free. He never charged you. My parents gave me the money for the salon. F you. And I was like, you know what? And that's why. And that's why you have it. I'm good with that. I'm good with that wife. I'm good with my girlfriend. Because that's who would be the one to tell everyone, you know what? F you.
Absolutely.
It was awesome.
And, like, that scene was like just applause worthy.
Yes.
And the screening that I saw it in, you know, you just can't help erupt, and then you fall in love with that character.
Yep.
And again, just going back to the beginning of that movie when she's just like, who knew he wanted to be a millionaire?
Yeah,
if he wanted to be a millionaire so much, why didn't he work for it?
I just thought she was the fourth lady on Golden Girls. You know, just one-liners and just jokes.
Great, yeah.
And that's all she was, one dimension. And to bring her back and really, you know, peel those layers away and reveal that, you know, it was wonderful.
It was great.
It's difficult though, because you think about, we keep saying everything that he had to deal with her, like she's this crabby lady, but then we start to realize who he is, what he's been through with the war and the drinking and all that, and you realize what she's had to deal with.
That's right. And so he's vilified, and then I love the moment, and rightfully so in some ways, but when she defends him, you realize, you know, he was kind of a nice guy and he just got lost. You know, he was weak. And I thought the other great moment was when Stacy Keach dressed him down in the bar and said to him, you know, remember you were going to leave with that half-breed? I had to talk you out of it. You know, and you just see the son's face. Just he's not hurt that the dad did it. He's so embarrassed for the father.
And the dad's ashamed.
And the dad's ashamed. It's oh my God, like this. Like, talk about how destructive words can be. You know, it tears the father's heart out in front of the son. But I also think the son in that moment kind of like is poor dad. Like he starts to get it a little more.
And then when he gets let's not say accosted is too strong. When he gets approached in the men's room, with Stacy Keach, and he's like
bullies him like he probably bullied the dad,
right? And he's like, "You threatening my family?" He goes, "You threatening my family?" Like he's having a hard time like comprehending this absurdity that's going on for something that like he's not a millionaire. Like we know that he ain't winning money. We sort of kind of deep down inside hope when he finishes the journey, but we sort of kind of know that that ain't gonna happen.
No, it's not gonna happen.
And Will Forte's character David is he ends up, that's where he learns about the indignity that his dad had to suffer. His dad was taken advantage of. Pretty much throughout this working life that he had.
Right. But you see your parents as your parents until you see them as people. And like you're saying, all of these things keep happening, and he keeps learning things about his dad. They go to the bar. He learns about him cheating on his mom, and he learns that his dad was in the war. He learns about the fact that he was shot down in the war, actually, which is something he didn't know. And all these things keep coming up until he finally, instead of looking him as a crappy dad, he sees him as a broken man. Which is a complete, instead of
you empathize with him.
Poor dad,
empathize.
like you said, poor dad. And so that's something that I think he hadn't felt before.
Right,
instead
he just saw him as a drunk.
Right,
before.
as a drunk or a bad father, somebody who hadn't been there. You know,
Right.
he's not the one who calls him bad father, but Ross calls him a bad father multiple times, says he wasn't there for them, and they can't see him beyond the fact that his parenting skills were not up to where their standards were. But as a person, he's gone through so much, and he's just at this break. He broke. You know, he's at his breaking point, and now he's just living because what else is he supposed to do? And this is what he's living for.
And this is what he's living for. And, Alexander Payne, I think one thing that's great about him is that setting out to make this movie, he goes on and he says something to the effect, watching one's parents grow older in ways that can be both confounding and revealing. And watching this movie and seeing your parents and they get older. I've been out in LA since 1996, so for a long time, and I left Massachusetts, and I don't see my folks as often as I used to, obviously. And it's a decision that I had to live with. Because I left a lot behind. And
We've all done that here, except for Sarah.
Except for Sarah.
Thank you, family, for living in California.
You just went back to Boston recently, and I go back, or my mom will come out a lot, when she can. But the one thing that never escapes me since I've made this move is the people around me are just getting older. I've seen my best friends have 2 kids that are now like in their grade school. One's about to get into middle school. And all of this happened while I wasn't there. And so, the poignancy of a Nebraska and seeing your parents age and things like that when you're not necessarily... I'm not close to my parents because of distance. David wasn't close to his parents because of different reasons, but it is about connecting and making that connection and appreciating them as they're older, and maybe missing out on something because maybe David wasn't the best son because he thought he looked at his parents in one way.
Perception. It's always, we always have these perceptions of people, and then we form them in our brains. And, I'll admit, being through therapy, one of the takeaways I got was that, every time I'd say something, well, this person did this because they felt this way. Well, stop. That's your perception. I'd say, wait, did they not feel that way? She said to me, no. The doctor would say, no, I don't know that, but that's your perception. Right. And so his perception of the dad was something completely different.
And towards the end, it became about, you know what? I wanted to give my dad dignity. There was even a line towards the beginning before they went on the road trip. He's like, Mom, what's the big deal? Because if this is what he wants to do, because who's it hurting? Because let me just take him out. He goes, if this makes him feel happy, let him feel happy. Let's go do this. It's not
hurting anybody.
Yeah, it's not hurting anybody. And at the end, it becomes even more. It's like, Dad, you drive. This is yours.
This is it. And there was a point in the movie I knew we were going to have a happy ending. And did you guys know it was going to end like that, or were you guys afraid it was going to?
No, there was definitely many points in the movie where I thought that the father was going to die. I absolutely thought that. I didn't even think maybe he was going to make it to the end.
Wow. Sarah?
That thought did cross my mind, that he was, the second time, I think it was, he went into the hospital, not the first time when he cut his head open. The second time when when the whole family was kind of there.
When he felt weak on the steps and then they took him into the hospital.
Yes, I thought there's a very big possibility he couldn't. The moment that I knew that they were going to be okay was actually when they went back to look for the letter in the sidewalk after it's been dropped. Even before the, big punch, all of that, before that, when he still is willing to keep going for him, I thought eventually we were going to see them.
Dimitri, what did you think?
It.
Yeah, no, I'll be honest. Like the scene when he was in the hospital, to me, it would have felt odd if he had died. Like that would have been an odd place to end the movie there, because there would have. I mean, I'm not saying that movies can end that way, but hey, Billy Wilder, Preston Sturges, some of the great people who've made great dark comedies before. He can end it on. I didn't think it was going to end on a really bad note.
Gotcha.
How it ended just made me feel really great and happy. And, it was nice that he ended it the way that he did, because it gave Bruce Dern's character such a lift. And that you knew that after this, listen, I don't know how much longer he's going to live.
Right. No, it's okay. It's chapters. It's done. It's done. For me, it was nice because it was a melancholy journey. And I think we deserved that ending. For me, like I'm always looking at the subtext of lines and dialogue, and if you have a good script, most of the lines shouldn't be taken at face value. And when he was in his old house, remember when they went back to the old house, and he walked in, he said, "Geez, my parents would have whooped me if I ever came into this room." And he said, "Nobody's gonna whip." Good, you remember? I said, "Nobody's gonna whip me anymore." And I gave like an elbow to my girlfriend and said, "Okay, we're good. We're good. Nobody's gonna whip me anymore."
Yeah.
And I was like, I think we're gonna be all right. And so,
yeah.
I also was really happy with how this ended, and for me, it was just because from the very beginning of this movie, I just felt that Mr. Grant was always just looking out windows for like this hope of something that wasn't existing. Oh, he was constantly looking out windows, and then at the very end, you get to see him like actually roll down the window of the car and just look at.
Sarah, you're so good.
Yeah.
I just try.
Good,
Maybe
good
I read
catch.
him too much.
No,
but he rolls down the window
never.
and he's like actually looking at what's in front of him. He's not looking at the past or the future or this dream world that people like see as they.
The air's coming in, and he's part of the.
There.
He's there.
Yeah,
He's present, and also that hope wasn't invested in this ideal lottery winning, but the hope came through the work and the person of his son. Like his son made his hopes come true, and that's what brought him to the present.
Yeah.
I thought it's a good thing to take away.
Sure.
That you can be happy with just your
Well,
family.
yeah.
I mean, just so if I'm a guy, so I love the shot of Stacy Keach. So I think probably being a male, I love seeing a big mouth like that, a big bully get his. And he's the prize winner had genius. And then when he saw her as kind of this like lost love.
Yep.
At the newspaper, and her eyes are like welled up with tears. And Dern just such a great actor, and I'm sure Alexander Payne's directing. He just glances just slightly, like he does see her.
He acknowledges her,
and he knows who she is. I don't think his dementia's so far gone. And he just drives along.
And I'm gonna say, like, regarding his dementia, I mean, we knew that he's ill, but again, you have to remember the townsfolk, they knew none the wiser. To them, he won $1 million. And
it's great, exactly, because he had the prize winner hat, the new truck.
He's driving through a new truck. He's got the brand new compressor. It's just him. There's nobody. To them, they knew none the wiser. And here comes Woody driving down Main Street. And it works in so many levels. Cathartic because the bad guys get their comeuppance.
Yeah.
Everybody else who, when the word got out that this was silly, they're seeing him and they're going, "Oh my God, he made something of himself."
Yep.
And Woody gets to believe that he actually did make something of himself because he gets to drive into the sunset on his steed, go out of town, say,
he got
F
his
you
compressor
all,
back,
and
like Sarah said, he really raised a good son.
Yeah, and
I thought it was great the final moments when we saw that, and you said that the ending made you feel really happy, and for me, yes, I was happy, but it was more of just, I'm so satisfied right now. Like, this is how it should have been, as opposed to, and I kind of did want this, like you were saying before, maybe he won the $1 million. Maybe this was real life. That wouldn't have been a great ending to this film. That would have been very far-fetched, and the whole film was about real relationships and real people dealing with each other and how things like this actually happen. And I thought that in that world, this was the happiest and the best case scenario that possibly could have been.
Yeah, and I think there was a movie that this sort of kind of did bring me back to from a while ago, because in a sense it is similar. I believe the movie, if I remember correctly, was in black and white, came out in the 70s, Academy Award winner for little Tatum O'Neal.
Test me. What do we got?
Paper Moon
Yeah.
with Ryan O'Neal.
Yeah.
And this is a father-daughter relationship.
Stop it.
Yeah,
Sarah.
sorry.
That's no excuse, because I'm going to reference the Last Picture Show
Yeah.
later, and that's well before my time, and I know
Okay,
it.
I know a lot of movies. I'm sorry
God.
that I don't have as much time to have seen them all that you guys have.
Paper Moon is a
calling
road
old.
trip
Okay, everybody.
movie.
So
All
just
I'm saying.
this is our little plug that means nothing to anything. Turner Classic Movies every February. All the classics are played. This is how I educated myself on films.
I know a lot
Every
of the
year,
classics.
every year, people, all the jocks and stuff have their March Madness. This was my form of March Madness. Just took place in February.
I watch
I
Summer
would
of the
watch-
Stars on Turner Classic Movies.
Listen to me.
Every year.
In
Yeah.
February, no, I'm being serious now, Sarah. In February, all of the Oscar-nominated films, so for acting, cinematography, editing, music, they put them all up there, commercial-free. You can watch them from beginning to end. Robert Osborne, and I forget the young guy because I'm having a brain freeze right now. They do these great intros and outros, give you a little background on the film, and it is wonderful. And I literally 7 or 8 years solid of watching these movies till 4, 5, 6 in the morning, and still going to work, and then coming home and watching them till 4, 5, 6 in the morning. But you know what? I did it, and that's what educated me on the process and on acting and things like that. And it's free and it's out there. And we probably should talk to them in February about how we can promote them more. Because I'm always trying to carry the flag for them.
I do have 3 letters for you, though. It's called DVR. You don't have to stay up all night. You
Not
can-
anymore.
No, I know. I'm kidding.
7 years ago, we didn't have DVR.
I like TCM because, well, they just went HD within the past year.
didn't know that.
Yeah, they look great.
how excited
Letterboxd.
I am.
Yep, no, it's awesome. And on DirecTV, if you just go to TCM and you hit info, boom, it comes up with like a month's supply of what's going to be on. So any movie that I think I may have missed, or if I want to watch again, I just hit click. But Paper Moon is a road trip movie, but it's a father-daughter relationship, and it was Tatum O'Neal's first. It was her first movie, and I believe she got nominated.
She was nominated.
Yeah, she could have won. But in any case, this movie reminded me of that in certain ways, because this was a road trip movie. Father and son getting to reacquaint each other. But I think we were saying it's a family reunion.
Okay.
It's definitely a family reunion movie.
Bringing up how this is a road trip movie, I thought it was interesting just how important it is when you release a movie to the public. So supposedly this movie was written 12 years ago, I think.
Yeah, about 10 years it took to make. Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons he shelved it for a while was because he had just made a road trip movie and he wanted to give it some distance.
Was it about Schmidt? This is talking about Alexander Payne. Yeah, if
It's Alexander Payne, and he had just done a road trip
He made
movie,
about Schmidt
and
with
he
Jack
wanted to make sure
Nicholson.
he finished Descendants before he came back and did another one. And in that time, I think that sometimes the cards kind of lay themselves out right, because now I think is a very good time for the release of this movie. It's different. It's coming after the recession. 12 years ago, we hadn't been in as much of a crisis as we were in the past couple of years. And I think coming after that, I think this hit home for a lot more people.
Yeah.
And he talks about how this movie also is kind of Depression era to him, the feeling wise. So I just think that it can be important. Although this movie I think is great on its own, I think today being released now is a good factor for them.
Yeah, I mean, how it's released and when it's released right now, I think for this movie, we're in the. I had this conversation just the other day. We're in a prestige phase of movies, even more so than any holiday season that I can remember. When you think about it, what are the big commercial films out right now? We got
2 years
Fire.
ago was huge too. 2 years ago was crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
as far as what you're saying,
But this is one of those years where there's not a whole I always remember the Thanksgiving Day period, that time. Like a lot of big commercial releases come out. We didn't really get too many. We got Thor, we got Catching Fire, but in between that, we've had like Nebraska, American Hustle is going to be coming out. We got Inside Llewyn Davis. We got a lot of these prestige films, and I think one thing that we haven't talked about Nebraska, All Is Lost, is I think what makes that end work too is because of the journey and because of its pace. The movie was, as I like to say, it was deliberately paced. This movie took its time. Yeah. You got to know the characters very well. It wasn't in your face. You went on this. You went on this journey. I think the black and white too definitely helped thematically, and it painted a picture. And when you get to these certain points, when you're going on that slow burn, when something big and great happens, you appreciate it that much more because you've already taken everything else in before it. So I think his direction and pacing in this movie,
it's amazing.
Were fantastic.
I mean, I think he's one of the best, one of the best directors.
Right. We've talked about how people perceive things differently, and that's something we've been mentioning throughout this show. And I think that it's interesting based on talking about the recession and everything that this side of the table is talking about. Based on when it was released, we're perceiving it differently. Had the movie come out 12 years ago when the script was written, maybe it would have affected us all differently and we would have looked at it differently. And it's not hitting you over the head saying the economy isn't in a good place and all this, but how money, when it comes to the picture, changes people, and how people who are usually good people you think are moral, they can become different. And we know that. We've seen that time and time again in film. Sure. But it means something different to us watching it now than it would mean to us watching it at a different time.
I disagree.
Yeah,
I feel like it's such a timeless movie.
If
you saw The Last Picture Show, which is a black and white movie, it's very similar. That this has more humor. I don't know. I just feel it's such a simple story. Tender Mercies. Robert Duvall, right? Mm-hmm. So it just to me, it feels like it fits any time.
And
I think so too.
I agree with Roxy because it goes back to what we've seen over the past couple of years, where honestly, as much as I love Catching Fire and I'm watching the series, and as much as I love Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is coming out, and I'll see that too, part of you gets a little out of breath from watching all of those
big giant movies.
Coming out one after another, and in that zone, like we've talked about in Catching Fire, how there's so many teen movies, how there's so many, like our generation, the people who are our age, have just been watching Twilight and Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and Catching Fire and all this stuff.
Right, Marissa?
It's true. Those are big movies. So when you've seen all of that, you get tired. And then bringing thing like this is even more refreshing.
I mean, I don't mean to necessarily go off on a tangent, but the way movies have been made, well, I'm just saying because movies have changed. If you look at a movie like A Risky Business or Sure Thing, those movies too take their times to set up characters. They're not really necessarily.
It's changed. It's funny. I saw Back to the Future the other day, and I feel like we had there was old Hollywood, right? The Turner Classic Movies.
Absolutely.
Then I feel starting a little bit in the late 60s, but say the 70s until the mid 90s, it was like a different way of making a film. Absolutely. And now you're right, going to 2000, it's evolved. It's evolved much faster. And you know why that? My theory is it's not just audiences changing. It's that this art form, which was once very young, 10, 15, 20, 34 years old, we just kind of know what we're doing now. It's 100 years into it. They really know. And you see, when you see it most is animation. Because in animation, you don't have, in the development process of animation, you're not beholden to, we only have Mark Wahlberg in October, so we have to rush the script along now. They can take their time. Sure. They can always make it work. And that's why, generally speaking, 80 or 90% of the time, the animated films are well done. Sure. But we kind of know what we're doing now. You know?
But I also take it to, I think that, I'm going to say this, I think people's attention spans have gotten very shorter. Even when you look at
absolutely,
and even when you look at a Back to the Future, their scenes play out, dialogue plays out amongst characters, camera shots are held on people maybe a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. Where today, like to your point, when you have like a Hunger Games, everything's quick. You're not staying on anything in particular, like your big action movies. Mm-hmm. So when a Nebraska comes along and really puts the brakes on. Nebraska is the type of movie that they would have made in the 70s.
Absolutely.
And
I think that's speaking to what I was saying, which is
absolutely.
And your counter to me was that you feel like this is timeless, and I'm not saying it's not. That's absolutely not what I was trying to imply. I think that this movie does have a extreme timeless quality about it. But I think because it came now as opposed to earlier, where not that it would have blended in with all the other films.
I don't think it would have blended
but
in.
I'm saying not that it would have blended
bigger
in,
difference.
but it makes a bigger
He's
difference.
such a great
completely agree.
filmmaker.
But it
The
absolutely
the
makes a
acting's
bigger
so
difference.
good.
If you
No.
think about
Yeah,
all
but-
these things going
but
on
if-
now,
Okay,
If you look at 1993 and what was coming out,
So
you know,
no, I think these guys were like they weren't even born then.
Yeah,
So
that's-
like,
yeah,
what
no,
are you
I know.
So what are you
You're a
talking? Are you
fetus,
guys
yeah.
talking about? You're talking about if it came out in like around 9/11? Is that? I mean, I'm trying to get.
if it came out 12 years ago when it was written,
10 to
I-
12 years ago.
I
yeah,
think that it would have.
2004.
I think it would have been different. But I think that now, A, post recession, B, our generation.
So what during the recession you think it just would be too painful to watch?
I'm not saying mid-post. I'm saying if it had been pre-recession, I think it would have been different. I think the perception of it would have been different. I'm not saying
No,
that the
but
quality of film would have
all
been
the
the
small
same.
towns are like this. They don't have a lot of money. They never have.
Yeah, but
you
it's
know?
all about perception. And now, yes, the small towns are like that, but that's not something that hit the coasts. Now it's hit the coast, and now people look at it differently.
people
can relate.
you think like the movie or relate to the movie more because they understand not having money?
I'm not saying relate. I think this is what we're saying. We're not saying that this would have been a horrible, or this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This wouldn't have been a horrible movie if you released it 10 years ago. It would have been a great movie. But you're comparing.
It would have been fine. If you study Woody Allen's works, it's very similar to these.
yeah,
Like,
I
this
mean,
is like-
thematically, this movie. Let's
Well,
take
okay,
a
but
look.
I'm just saying,
Manhattan.
for my age, this makes more of an impact on me because I've seen so much of these fast-paced, these crazy big blockbusters that this stands out. And to me,
That I
coming
understand.
after
Okay,
a year,
yeah, I
a couple
understand
years
that.
where you had movies like The Artist or whatnot
But I
that were
also
making impacts and making difference.
But I also
or where
think 'cause you
have
haven't
years
seen
like
a lot of these
Francis
other
Ha
movies.
Yeah,
and
I think
all
that-
we have to educate you. I think we have to give you a nice. We're going to give them a summer
all the
reading
people-
list.
no, I
but
think-
all the
Dimitri, we're going to
people-
give them a summer
But
viewing
I think,
list.
but when you look at the movies that have won, like look at The Artist. Like The Artist isn't a fast-paced movie at all, and it's black and white,
One line in the
and
whole
it's
movie.
silent.
Well, that's what I'm just saying.
Right,
I'm
so-
saying that we had all this. We're seeing a change. This is sticking out. And on top of that, yes, you two have seen a lot of movies. Nebraska is not only in a well, it's kind of a limited release, but it's not in just the Lemleys or whatever. It's going to AMC's in larger theaters.
Yeah.
And people who are not film experts are seeing this movie.
Look, the
It's
movie.
reaching out to a broader audience. It's not targeting classic film people. It's targeting everyone.
You know what? I will say
Boom!
this.
Kevin does
Yeah.
not agree with
I
me.
You know,
don't agree with you.
yeah.
I think the critics would highly acclaim it. I think it would
The
be.
critics
Yes,
are
and they
highly
have.
claiming it.
And they would,
Yeah, but I'm
10
gonna-
years ago they would have highly claimed it. If there was a
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes 10 years ago,
the
it would have
critics
highly
would
claimed
have,
it.
but the
And
people
would have
Yeah,
gone out to see it,
wait,
and you
But
would have
more
liked
people
it.
are going to see
Hold
the
on one
Matthew
sec,
Box
folks.
Station.
Listen, but I've got something. The movie came out November 15th, so
Right.
that's about a month ago.
Right.
The movie's only made $2.5 million.
Right.
Sure.
So no, the movie is not being released that way.
They have
Kids,
more money than that.
kids aren't going to the movies to go see
But it's
Nebraska.
like the people I'm talking to. I've seen
know.
more people talk about Nebraska and want to go to Nebraska than people who wanted
but-
to go to
All right,
Artist
listen,
and
guys.
other things.
Let's move on because
Fine.
we get it. You two, we feel that way. We feel it this way.
Fine.
I think the directing on it is great. I think there's a lot of patience involved. I know one of the things that Woody Allen always complained about with American cinema versus European cinema was the fact that European cinema would have the patience.
Sure.
Even back then, he said it back in the 70s, we needed the quicker cuts. And I'm sure Payne, he's from that world. He likes being able to have the patience. And when you're Alexander Payne, you have the power.
Yeah, no,
He's
and-
got Final Cut over all his films. He brags about it all the time.
Which is
you know.
great.
And so he's the type that will say, no, let's hang on this shot. Let's hang on this moment.
Sure.
And I think it's great.
And
We're
let's make
lucky.
this movie in black and white. And
let's hire these
you know,
actors.
and-
Well,
but-
that's another
but
discussion we
what-
probably should have.
But one other
Or is
thing
that
too that
cinematography?
you know what I referenced earlier. We are in the middle of a prestige season, and a lot of these movies I've seen, including Philomena, not a fast-paced movie whatsoever. Inside Llewyn Davis, definitely not a fast-paced movie whatsoever. Nebraska, not a fast-paced movie whatsoever. And you know, even when you look at this past summer, okay, a big travesty in not getting any Golden Globe nominations was The Way Back. And this movie, not a fast-paced movie, a simply paced movie, great storytelling. The Spectacular Now is another movie that acting nods were not-
wonderful.
Yeah, and again, was it a fast-paced movie? No. They've been
Spectacular
making
Now
these movies.
Did you guys see Spectacular Girls?
Shailene Woodley.
Yes. Did you see it?
No, I didn't see it.
Oh my God, guys. You see it because, you know what, to me, it's an adolescent version of Nebraska.
Sort of, kind of.
You should see it. It's great. If you have fans out there, great movie. Very underrated.
It's a very underrated movie. But again, like, these movies are out there. It's just that, again, when it's a stark difference to, like, we've been talking about Hunger Games and Gravity, and even, like, you know, a Thor, a Star Trek 2. You know, we're talking about big blockbuster movies, even comedies that are coming out, and Anchorman. Everything happens very quick. It's big. It's fast. So when a movie switches gears, it slows you down, but it's the way that they've always been making movies. You know, I'll even go back to a movie that I'm a big fan of. You know, if you've been watching this, you all know this. I mean, Halloween, to me, the best horror movie ever,
Right.
But it's a very slowly, deliberately paced movie. This is not a movie that, you know, that movie was made and released in 1978. That movie takes its time. There's nothing like today's horror movies that they're built up to. So, yeah, I think if Nebraska were released 10 years ago today, it would have gotten the same reviews. And its core story is about the family.
Yeah.
And that is always timeless. No matter what year you release. Like, you could release Nebraska 20 years from now, and it'll still be a very good movie.
Okay, so you guys,
we're back.
you guys familiar with
I didn't do that
with
this
mumble
time.
with mumblecore movies?
Mumblecore
You
movie?
ever heard that term?
Mumble.
Mumblecore films. You know, afterwards, look it up because I'm not saying this is mumblecore, but it's indie cinema that is character driven, low budget. A lot of time it could be a lot of improv, sometimes using non-actors. It's a great film movie, and it's very inspiring to young filmmakers because you can do it, you can afford it. But the reason I like when I look at Nebraska, it's like that is the grandest and the, you know, of that level of filmmaking. This is like as great as it could be, but it's aspirational too, because if you had a couple of 5D cameras and you were out, you know, in the Midwest, those locations would be easy to get, and you had just a decent core of actors, you could make this film.
Yeah.
And I like that. And you know, and so I don't know, just if some of our fans and for you guys too, check out Mumblecore, because I've just Google it and see what films come up. Some of them are a little slow paced, some of them aren't that good, but a lot of them are great. And if you like Nebraska, you'll like the ones you see. And if you're an aspiring filmmaker yourself, you'll which I know Sarah, you and Roxy are, these are movies you guys can make.
Okay, well, let's talk about Nebraska and about budget and how he finds his actors. Because for Hollywood, this is a very low budget film. I want to say it was, what, 13 million?
I think
Yeah,
estimated 12.
12,
Yeah, it was
13 million.
estimated.
And it's a lot of money, but compared for film, it's really not.
Relatively cheap.
Relatively. It's $13 million, no problem. And what I found fascinating is how
It is expensive for this movie. I think it's pricey for this movie.
Based
I
on
think this is
based
under
on who
10
Payne is.
This is under 10 million to me. So that the fact that they made this for 13 million, I think 12 million. Sorry.
well, their most
and look at they got 2 million back. I mean, you know.
I can tell you what their most expensive shot was.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
have that
believe,
too.
Yeah.
I want to say going through South Dakota.
Yep.
They wanted to illustrate that there's a lot of bikers, but I believe it was Paramount wouldn't allow them to just hire in bikers, and so they had to fly out Los Angeles stuntmen
It's
and
too
rent
dangerous.
bikes and do all of this, and it cost $50,000 for
riders.
this one shot.
It was $50K. It was a 5-second shot, and he had to ask for additional money from Paramount to do it. That being said, I think things like that are what make a movie what it is. Little nuances that we don't even notice at the time, but they set a vibe and an atmosphere. And I think that he has the clout at this point to say, listen,
Totally has
I'm,
the clout.
yeah, of course. I'm doing a black and white film. I mean, who else is Paramount's going to say no to 99% of the people who say that off the bat? They didn't even know they had this script. It wasn't a script that they were trying to make. You know, he had to remind them, this is a script you guys have. You've had it for years, and I want it. Not only do I want it, but when I read it in my head, it was black and white. So this is how I'm going to do it. And also, I'm not going to cast anybody that you really know, because that's not how I work. Here are the people I want to cast.
And on top of that, I'm going to cast locals who are farmers come in and be some extras.
Right, and he can do that. So yes, I think that you're right that for 10 million or under, this would have been really extraordinary. The fact that it went to 12, not great, but because of who he is, I don't think they cared.
They give him what they want.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
it's worth it for the critical acclaim they'll get, the publicity they'll get.
Yeah.
They may not make the money back, but it doesn't matter with these guys.
But what we don't know about that 12 million, because what I wasn't able to find out is how much of that was related to prints and advertising.
I'm sure tons of it.
Yeah,
You're
so
right,
I don't
you're
know.
Right. You're right.
I mean, the movie could have cost $6 million to make,
Right.
and another $6 million to
right.
make the hard drives
You're right.
and to
You're
advertise.
right. I didn't
the
even
movie.
think of that.
So
I actually
they-
stand corrected because you're right. A fortune goes into the.
Yeah, and they haven't for whatever
All
reason they
makes
didn't
sense.
break that down.
All makes sense.
And the other thing too is we're going to talk about black and white. And
Yeah, let's talk about it.
What I love is this cinematographer, this Payne Papamichael. Number one, he's Greek, Yasu Payne,
Like
that's awesome.
Alexander.
like Alexander.
Like Alexander's Greek.
Okay, couple of things that I noticed about this guy. His first movie
Oh yeah.
was Stripped to Kill 2 Live Girls. That was this guy's first movie. And
what
Payne
first?
Papamichael. Yeah. Other movies that this guy's worked on is Biodome, Mouse Hunt, Identity, and then he worked on Sideways. And then
Again, I credit Alexander. You know what, for not judging him for Biodome, like not being a snoot and misjudging this guy, giving him a shot on Sideways.
Well,
and seeing what he could do.
They sort of kind of came from the Roger Corman mold, in a sense, and like you have, when you look at what Roger Corman
that they can run and gun and go, and go under budget.
Yeah, and I believe Payne. Well, I believe if you look up Stripped to Kill 2, I think that might have been a Roger Corman film. And when you look at people like James Cameron and Ron Howard got his start with Roger Corman, when you start off that way and you learn how to be pragmatic, be efficient, learn how to do that stuff, because then he went from Sideways, he did Matilda, then he did one of my favorite movies while I was at Lionsgate, 3:10 to Yuma by James Mangold.
Wonderful movie.
Oh, it's a great remake, a very well done, well-deserved remake. And then he did Night and Day, he worked with him again, but then he hooks up with George Clooney and he works on Ides of March, which is a really good dark film.
Good film.
And then he worked on The Descendants, which looks great. And he's back with Clooney again. He worked on Monuments Men, which we'll see next year. So this guy, he's a really good cinematographer. Right from the get-go, Alexander Payne, who's from Nebraska, said the only way I can film this is in black and white. This is going to capture the nuance of what I want.
If for some reason I can't see it shot any other way.
No.
Do you guys agree?
Completely. I mean, when I was watching the film, I thought right before it started, I wonder why. Am I going to enjoy this? I actually love black and white films, but sometimes I think that people just try to be different. I should have known because it's Alexander Payne that that's not what he was doing. I can't even picture it in color, and it disturbs me to think that I could ever possibly see it in color because I think it would change the film 100% and it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't have the same vibe or feel to it.
The grittiness would be gone.
And Alexander Payne said that he had actually seen the color. They shot it full on with digital cameras. I believe they used Arri Alexa cameras. And the other great thing that they did about this movie is they filmed it in true CinemaScope. So we're looking at a scope picture, which a little lesson. There are 2 film formats. Well, there's a flat format and there's the scope format. If ever the next time you go to the movies, just take a look. It's the reason why your curtains were invented for the movie theater screen. A flat film is basically square on your movie screen. So then they would have to use the curtains to come in and crop the screen so that you didn't have empty space. CinemaScope is more of a rectangular look, and it makes it bigger. It was, I forget when it was invented. I don't have that history in my head. But when you film a black and white film in this stark kind of a CinemaScope look, it just makes everything look great. When you're filming a close-up, you can see everything awesome, but because they filmed it with these Alexa digital cameras, they can make it color, with a flick of a switch. And he saw it in color. He says, it's still a good movie, but it's not the movie it's not my movie. It's not the movie that I want to
And
release.
what's the talk you guys are talking about that it might be released in?
So he really doesn't want anyone to see it in color, like as you said. It's
Yeah,
not
but there's
his movie,
I forget if it's Africa, but there's a territory that they won't show it in black and white.
Wow.
So he has to, which is, hey, if that's what you got to do.
Because of government purposes?
If I was him, I would not give it to
I don't
them.
know why.
Is that bad? I would just not give it to that country. Is that
Well,
mean?
you don't want to leave money on the table if the.
And also, I would think you want more eyes and ears exposed and different cultures exposed to your work. And who knows, at some point, someone's putting up a lot of money, and contractually speaking, he may only have so much power. I mean, you know.
Do you think it's better for it to be seen not exactly the way you want it than not seen at all?
Yes.
So I think that I mean, that's not the only question. Of course, Paramount thinks that the question is money, I'm sure, but.
And you know what? We're talking about it, so it's a good thing.
Yeah.
The movie made $2.5 million. They need more people talking about it. Like, if this is what's going to get more people
Because
more
it was
excited.
such a fantastic movie.
And you know, the funny thing is I'm reading
But
here too, the Alexa, this digital camera, it actually records in color, but their dailies were transferred to black and white. In this case, we added actual film grains, so you have the texture of film, which is great. And these are all of the efficiencies that I think that digital filmmaking today can do for not just an Alexander Payne, but Joss Whedon used it from What You Do About
and
Nothing.
Still
and
feeling the grittiness of film. That's
Absolutely.
That's how advanced the cameras are. You're not to go to film. Film's so much slower, so much more expensive.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not going to begrudge Christopher Nolan. You know, he's a 35 millimeter.
He's got the money and the time. Entertain me all you want. I'm just saying, as a director, I'd rather go with the thing.
Hey, but for a budding director, for anybody who's up and coming, you know, the digital world, coming from a distribution background and working now at Technicolor and seeing, like, working in this digital world, it's fantastic for anybody who wants to make movies. Now is a great time because the distribution model is ever changing and evolving to allow these smaller films to happen. So, you know, and when you're looking at this guy and what he did, what I think is great, speaking of Christopher Nolan, he is this Vaden with Wally Pfister, who works with Christopher Nolan, and Janusz Kaminski, who, you know, he's worked with a guy, you may have heard of him, called Steven Spielberg. They are doing an online film school. Like, now, how awesome is that? Like, if you get to go online and they are going to give you their tips and techniques. And these are some of the best cinematographers in the business today. And they've been working forever. So, yeah. And obviously the cinematography in this film that I think we all agree that we love it.
So, Sarah, Steven Spielberg is a director who directed E.T.
What's that?
Okay, we went to USC. We know who that
What's
is.
E.T. mean?
Is
E.T. a person?
Let's go back. Can we go back to the cast?
What are you saying
and the casting
to me?
of this
I don't
movie?
understand.
Yeah.
What do you understand?
So didn't he want Gene Hackman? He was trying to get Gene Hackman out of retirement, and I
wish.
love Hackman.
There was a couple other people.
In one way, I wish, because I want to see Gene Hackman again.
And one more good movie.
But in another way, I'm grateful because because Bruce Dern to me he was perfect.
I mean,
we talk about actors.
He was literally the most. It was such a fantastic performance. I couldn't take my eyes off of him. And we're used to seeing him play villains, and we've seen him in a lot of different
Big
roles.
Love.
Right, but he's a lot of times. He's second best, you know, or whatever it is. This, to me, he made the film. It was incredible. And like you were talking about Gene Hackman, also Jack Nicholson was up for the part.
Who is one of his friends?
And a few other actors. Right. And I
Man, what a
like
comeback role would be for Nicholson, right?
Yeah. If you wanted to,
it would have been
he can
completely
do,
different,
though.
though.
I think it's a comeback role for Bruce Dern.
Yeah,
Sure.
And I agree with everything. You know, like personally in my heart, I would have loved to have seen Hackman. Because let's not let him end on that piece of crap movie.
Exactly. But wait a second. But let's back up. I don't even see it as a comeback. I think it's a coming to for Bruce Dern.
Yeah.
Like for Bruce Dern to be a major movie star, leading man. To me, it's like hello. Like that's why I love. Filmmaking and to sidetrack, I love life because look at this guy's. He's got to be what, late 60s or early 70s?
No, I think he's in his late 70s.
Yeah, he's in his late 70s.
And so, like his career to be evolving in his late 70s, it's
he was
wonderful.
born in 36.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so late 70s.
Yeah, he's younger than Shatner.
76.
Wow.
So,
70.
but you know the thing about Bruce Dern too, and I have a funny story about Bruce Dern. When I saw this at a screening, I was in Florida. I was at the Show East convention. And Paramount, it was fancy schmancy, sure. Yeah, it was. This is one of the movies that they screened, and Bruce Dern happened to be in the audience. He was there. He was going to present the movie, and I was with my boss Cammie and one of my exhibitor colleagues, and she was like, "I wonder what his favorite movie is," and I'm like, "Going, all right, I'll ask." He goes, "No." I said, "I didn't say you would do it. I'll do it," and because he took questions and answers, which. Number one, that never happens in this. Usually the person will come out, hey, this is my movie, enjoy it. I worked hard, see you later. But he stuck around, so I got chosen. And I was like, Mr. Dern, I go, outside of your own movies, because he was talking about his own, what's your favorite movie? And he was like, he thought about it, he goes, I'm going to give you two. He goes, Lawrence of Arabia and Amadeus. Now, right off the bat, you would say, okay, those are they can be considered obvious choices. But he's followed it up, and he goes, the reason why, look, they're both great films. Nothing's going to take anything away from them. He goes, but they're both about men who do something. He goes, and I like watching movies about men who do something. And those two movies, and when you think about it, when you think about this movie, like, it is about a man who ends up doing something. And
who can barely do anything.
Right, who can barely do anything.
Slow and,
right?
Ironic.
But I love that.
Can we talk about the female lead?
Can we stay on him?
We need to stay on Bruce Willis.
Sure.
You want to stay on?
You guys just put the clock on me.
Well, you have that, but
Okay, sorry.
We'll just speed through them real quick. What I wanted to say is that I thought it was wonderful. I read some interviews from his perspective, and that as an actor, he was thankful and also proud of his work in this film. Like, he really talked about how he's a trained actor. He was trained, I guess, in method and Lee Strasberg and all sorts, and he's been around for obviously a long time. And but he put this as a plateau for him. He was like, I will never do any work where I give less to a character than this. To me, my whole goal is just to make this truthful. And he felt that he was very complete. Like, it was a complete character from the beginning to end. And he was just talking about how he really gave his heart over and was open to it. And just to read that and have him be so proud but secure, but also not arrogant.
yeah.
I just thought that was really nice, because so many actors do shy away or on the opposite are cocky, and he just gave a very real perspective and also put himself up to an expectation and a want of what he wants to present to people and what he wants to show, and he believes that there should be a quality to what he does. And I just think that's really important, and for at his age to still be like, no, I keep myself to these standards, I'm going to work hard, I want people to believe, I really respect it.
Listen, I'm going to defend you to point right here for a second and say, and this is the only way that this situation works. Had this movie been made 10 years ago, Bruce Dern probably would not have been in the place to make this movie. It would have been another actor. I think for him, the guy's done a lot at his age, what he's accomplished. I think this movie for him came at the right time.
Yeah.
Like, it was perfect. All the cards fell on the table the way they
Right.
should have.
And I think something else that's great about the film, and this speaks to something that you mentioned earlier, just as an actor, he said about the scene where he goes into the house and the line where he says, nobody's going to whip me anymore, that he could really relate. And he said, growing up, it was very similar in his house. And then he continued and said, if I opened my mouth or said something that didn't need to be said, I'd get pounded. And then he made a joke and said, I guess no one's going to pound me anymore. And it was really interesting to me because, sometimes you hear about actors who they are in these roles and they're grasping at straws trying to relate and trying to be with their character. And this role was just so clearly meant for him. It just worked, and everything about it worked. So again, back to our point and what you just said. Thank you for agreeing about the timing.
I'm just saying the timing 10 years ago, he wouldn't have been ready for this movie.
Nor would they have cast him.
Right.
He would have been 10 years younger. Why are we back
You know
to
what?
Of
He's
course
right.
not, but I'm just,
you're right.
I'm just,
No, but
I'm just saying.
I was just trying to make nicey nice here.
I'm just saying, I thought that it was interesting that he said that and that he could, on a personal level, relate.
Right.
I know that everybody has their different method or whatnot.
Sure.
But that was interesting to me.
Yeah.
So before Kevin has to leave us, maybe we should attack the other actors, other people.
You wanted
in
to
this
talk
film.
about June Squibb.
I loved her work.
How could you not in this movie?
I didn't like it for the first 10 minutes.
Neither did
But
I.
again,
Sarah, I agree with you. I didn't
She's
either.
like,
What's wrong with you guys? She said that to me when we watched the movie, and I was like, I literally
my
love
girlfriend
her.
said the same thing. It just seemed forced, and it seemed on the nose, and it took me a while, and of course it hooked me. They got me in, but at first I'm with you, Sarah.
But again, that's what I
was like, there's the girl from the Golden Girls. Got it. Seen that character before.
Thanks a lot, because you brought everything full circle for me. Had they only kept that character in there for the first quarter, it would have been she would have been that, like, what is he doing with her? Like, how did that marriage last? But the mere fact that they were able to write her until later on, and then she showed her child, she was fantastic.
Yep,
She was
agreed.
hysterical.
oh, definitely. Like, by the end of
Great.
the movie, I loved her.
Right.
So and that's crazy, because normally when I'm like, ooh, the whole time, and she She switched me. She changed my perspective,
What
and I
was
think
her
that was
background,
maybe
you
a
guys?
point. Oh, I do know this. Oh gosh.
She was also in another movie that was done about Schmidt. She was in,
Yep.
and that's
Oh,
how
that's how he knew her.
Yeah, that's how he knew her. But
Oh, that's
I thought
right.
that it
That's
was
Jack Nicholson's wife. Remember her fumbling
Yep.
for the keys?
right. And I first of all, I think
that's
she's
why.
fantastic in
She's
general.
great.
I didn't dislike her at the.
I'm just thinking of her history. I know she was on Broadway.
Listen,
and
she's done a
theater.
lot of
She's done
TV.
Right. I
But
didn't
she started
dislike
in theater.
her at the beginning like you guys did, but of course she grew, and it wasn't until, and I think that's what was the point of it. It wasn't until, excuse my French for a second, but she said, "And you guys can go fuck yourselves."
Yeah.
That I was finally like, yeah, you can, and
Yeah.
this is the woman. She's,
Yeah. No, she
you
was
know,
great.
and like you also mentioned before, taking the wheel and literally leading the family and driving the family. I think she wasn't supposed to be our favorite character at first. She was supposed to grow. We were supposed to grow with this film, and she was the one who maybe you were at first, and by the end you were like, you know what? You don't know what this woman's been through. Look at her having her family's back. Look at her taking control and pulling it off.
Yeah.
I would
and-
like to watch it the next time I watch it. I would like to see what my feelings for her at the beginning.
no, I mean,
knowing now what their history and what we know.
I
going back and
honestly
seeing
don't
her.
think she was necessarily meant to be like. I think she was meant to be that harsh wife to make you sympathize with Woody even more. He's like, good God.
Well, I think we're talking about the acting, right?
Right, the acting.
Me and
Well-
Sarah are talking about the acting, yeah.
Well, I'm thinking like the act. I was just looking at the character as a whole. Like she wasn't a likable character at the beginning, regardless of whether her acting was good or bad to me. I mean, she was just that. It just made me feel more sorry for Woody. Going, oh, good God, because all she's doing. And then, when Will Forte, when David has to go, Mom, just let him be. Like, stop nagging him. It's like, this isn't going to hurt anybody for him to go. I'm just going to take him away for a couple of days. Okay, Mom?
You have to learn she's quirky before you can have judgment on her, because I think if you went back, as you were saying you would like to do, you would realize she's a quirky character,
Sure.
where she flashes the gravestone, and she's every time they drive by, she's like, that person was getting my panties, that person was trying, all these weird things, and you're like, oh God, Mom, stop talking, you're old and it's weird to think about your vagina. But I think if you went back to the beginning and you see that she's giving her husband crap, that you would think, oh, well, once you know who she is and her quirky personality, I don't think we would dislike her as much.
Will Forte, what do we think?
He was great. I mean, no, he was. Listen, what he did. Look, he ain't MacGyver, and he played it very deadpan, very subdued. Like it was, even when he's being confronted, like he's like, God, he sees the situation that he's getting himself roiled into, and it's like, Woody, you're a millionaire, and it's like, oh God, no, he's like, oh, and he can't explain himself anymore to these people, and so. He's a slow burn as well, but he's also in for this ride. But I think because of his, I'm not sure if passiveness is the right word, but he just plays it very straight. He's almost like the straight man.
There's like a passive and innocence to him.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. There's an innocence. There's genuine innocence and like.
But he's not happy in life either.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it. He's not necessarily happy with his job.
Very unfulfilled.
Right.
Right?
Great
Unfulfilled is the best word.
Great setup. Totally underachieving.
Yeah.
Great setup in the speaker store, I thought. The only bit of casting that I didn't like, which just relates to Will, was his girlfriend. That didn't work for me.
Yeah, that didn't work for me at all.
It didn't
And that's
work for
interesting
me.
you said that, because that was the
Because
only person.
he's more attractive than to be with that.
That's
what I
that's
thought.
not what bothered me
What
about
bothered
it.
you?
She just in a world that was so real to me, and that all the lines, everything she said, I was like, I don't believe you. You wouldn't say that.
All right,
And
maybe that's what it
I
was
don't
for
believe
me.
you.
Maybe that's what it was. Yeah, I just didn't buy into it.
I know what you're
that's probably
saying.
what it was.
Yeah, and exactly. And then once you're not buying into her personality, then you
lost.
look at her and you're like, well, if her personality sucks, she's got to be a 10. But if she's not, you know what I mean? Like,
Completely.
I'll take this. You know what? I saw this movie in October. Until you just mentioned it.
You didn't
I
think
had
that.
forgot that he had a girlfriend.
right.
Like, no offense to the
Ex-girlfriend.
actor or the actress.
You know what?
but-
We probably didn't need it unless you were going to pay it off, where now, because I guess unless the idea is that because he's so touched by this journey that now in traditional filmmaking, he's touched by that journey now.
And then he proposes.
That's right. And maybe we're left to believe that he's going to be more proactive.
But I didn't care. I didn't want him to propose. I didn't care about this girl at all.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
I wanted
didn't
him
want
to
the
be-
relationship
By the
to
way,
work.
everyone, I say minor blip on the radar. No
Yeah,
movie
no.
is perfect.
Absolutely.
I love this film. Just that's the one thing of casting. I was like,
I have to agree with you now because I really forgot about that subplot.
There's another part of the casting thing that I'm okay with, but I feel I'm surprised that Payne went with Better Call Saul. I'm surprised he went with
Ross, Bob, Odin.
Bob Odenkirk for the brother, because to me that felt stunt casty, meaning we all know Breaking Bad, greatest television show in history. And you've got this actor who's now
Came from
so
SNL.
hip and hot and famous in Odenkirk, and I'm surprised where Alexander Payne has been the guy to say, no, I want the guy from Wings and Sideways, and I want Paul Giamatti, and I want Bruce Stern. I don't want names. That he would go with
What
him.
about Stacy Keach?
Stacey Keach is a great call because he's a guy that's been put out to pasture. He's had drug problems, whatever.
Jesus.
And to be pulled back out, that's a great call.
He was great.
That's not a stunt to me. It was like, you know what? This guy's raw. He's gritty. He physically, he was
And he's-
imposing.
But did you
Extremely talented.
dislike
He's a
him
thug.
as Ross, or did you don't know?
I'm saying it was hard for me. It's going to be hard for Bob Odenkirk. It was hard for me to not see Saul
Okay.
from Breaking Bad, and this is for me, if I'm managing him, his next role, we need to shave the head, or we need long hair, or he's gonna have to reinvent himself, because it was really hard for me. By the way, such a good movie that I was in halfway through. I was fine.
He didn't. I thought he was good. And again, when you look at
He was good, but the thing is, for me, I couldn't.
just couldn't
it's
get
still
Saul out of the head.
playing that role, and I'm surprised Payne went with him. And it's just a problem that all actors have.
Yeah.
And he might need to shake the tree to reinvent, because it's, to me, my brain just went to Saul. I'll tell you, I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan,
Sure.
so maybe that's why.
Sure.
But my girlfriend, same thing, huge Breaking Bad fan. She was like, ooh.
Yeah. Well,
Kevin, do you have
well, I was gonna point out I had one little favorite. This Devin Rattray. He was one of those Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, they were great.
You're right. They were great. Number one.
Do you remember whether he was Bart or Cole?
Devin Rattray was, I believe, he was Bart.
Okay.
But the best thing about him is he was Kevin McAllister's jerk brother in Home Alone.
Great. Oh my gosh, I told with the spider.
That's
With the spider.
spider.
With the tarantula.
That's the kid from Home. That's
I
a guy
love
from
that.
Home
That
Alone.
was great call. I also love the casting of his father and the
Yeah,
mother.
Absolutely.
They were great.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Midwestern.
Yeah. Tim Driscoll, the Uncle Ray, and Aunt Martha, Mary Louise Wilson. That they were great casting.
Are they professional actors, or were they
Yeah,
Midwesterners?
both of them professional, I believe.
Or Rance.
But a lot of the other relatives who were watching the football game were not.
Locals.
Well, Uncle Ray's Ron Howard's dad. Rance Howard. I believe that's Ron Howard's dad.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
There you go.
that's crazy.
Small world.
Yeah.
I forget. I lost my thought.
What were you gonna say?
Does Kevin have any final thoughts on? Let's see.
Oh my god, no! I still have so many thoughts. I don't want to leave. It was something to do with the casting, but I'd want you guys to continue. I want to hang in as long as I can.
Well, I wanted to know what you guys thought about if David had been casting differently. We talked about Woody being cast differently, but David, there was a couple people: Paul Rudd, Casey Affleck, Bryan Cranston. Speaking of your Breaking Bad family, so what would you guys have felt if any of these people had been cast? And do you feel like this movie wouldn't have been what it was without
Go
Will
ahead.
Forte?
Go ahead.
I mean, I think that for me, Will Forte did a great job. I really did like him.
Yeah,
To me, he was more not replaceable, but other people could have done his job.
Yeah.
Because to me, a lot of it was about his reactions and just being there for his father. Versus for Bruce, I thought a lot of his acting was in the unspoken, and was just
Bruce
so
just
strong in that he
crushed it,
couldn't
right.
be
Crushed
replaceable.
it.
right.
Versus
You could replace him, but if you look at those names, to me, Rudd's in this. A big Paul Rudd fan, but he's in the Stiller mode where it's like he's always playing that same character.
And I would have seen that as stunt casting. to me.
Yes,
But
Casey
Casey Affleck,
Affleck,
on
yeah.
the other hand,
is a fantastic
Yeah.
actor.
Yeah, I think he would have
who
been
can
really
become
good.
different characters.
absolutely.
I agree.
But so Boston, I don't know if he could have gotten Midwest.
they did a good job.
Forte
and I
nailed
didn't,
Midwest.
Yeah, he was
yeah,
great.
and I didn't need anyone to be different besides the girlfriend in this, I would say.
Yeah, I was worried about Forte when I first watched him. The first thought in my mind was, am I going to be able to not think about 30 Rock? I mean, more so than SNL, because that's
From
more
the
recent
trailers or from the from the beginning
from
of the
the
movie?
beginning of the movie. The first second I saw him on it, I was like, uh-oh. And then that was the last time I thought of that. So he did a fantastic job. This is not to say he didn't do a great job, but I do think, as you said, there are other people who could have done a great job as well.
Yeah.
As opposed to the role as Woody, which I don't think could have been played by somebody else.
I'll just go back and just because he's a favorite of mine. I met him briefly for 2 seconds in Boston, but I would have really loved to have seen Gene Hackman. I think Gene Hackman really would have nailed this role.
I mean, Gene Hackman's amazing,
right?
Of course.
And I think he would. And again, it's nothing against Bruce Dern at all.
But I do think, Gene has such a presence, and this guy is an anti-presence.
But he hasn't had a presence in a long time. So for him to come back,
but it never goes away. But I'm saying that presence, that it factor. He's such a strong. When has Gene Hackman not been strong? He's so strong that I just the way Bruce Dern was so subdued.
Yeah.
Gene could get there because I'm sure Gene Hackman could get there because he's a phenomenal actor, but we've always seen him be so strong. Like so to see him soft, I think he could have done it, but not like Dern. I also want to say, just a shout out before I go, is I don't know if you guys knew, but at the restaurant, the two old parents that came up were Alexander Payne's parents.
Oh, that's
a
great.
good trivia.
Also-
I
And you
didn't
could
know
tell
that.
by just looking at them, like, wait, that's his mom and dad.
I want to say also one of the scenes, the writer is in it. I can't remember what scene's in it.
Oh, I love to know
Oh
that.
yeah, he is in. I forget which scene he was in as well.
He's in a diner scene? Is he in the
It's
diner?
either in the diner
or
scene.
bar?
No. He's in the scene. I think he's in the scene when they were outside and they were gonna start the fight, and it's when she tells everybody to go fuck themselves. I think it might have been that scene.
I have it somewhere. I have way too many windows open on my computer, guys.
So
Switching gears, though, guys.
From a technical aspect too, I think this movie really worked. I think the editing worked really well. Look, they got the pace that Alexander Payne wanted. Alexander Payne movies are not quick-paced movies.
No.
And I think a lot of that had to do with the music. The
Sure.
music of this was
Love the
so
music.
fantastic.
Great transition.
That
Tin Hat Trio.
I barely thought about it throughout the entire thing. You know, it flowed so nicely that it moved me and it helped my emotions go from point A to point B without me saying like, oh, this song, it just kind of was one constant thing for me. How did you guys feel about the music?
I loved the music. For me, so for those of you who haven't heard, it's from Tin Hat Trio. They're based out of San Francisco. They haven't been together for a while, and basically how they got involved was they used it as temp sound while they were editing, and then basically they ended up liking it so much that they reached out, and one of the guys came in from the trio and ended up tailoring kind of the music towards the film. And it was the first time that all of them came together since they'd I think broken up in 2005
That's
or
fantastic.
2004, and they really stuck through the whole film. Are we leaving you?
No, I said, yeah, what a great comeback.
No,
Yeah.
it's
And
excellent.
so, but their genre, the Tin Hat Trio, it's a lot of, they like to mix things. So it's
Sure,
mixed like
yeah.
jazz and blues and folk.
Folky, yeah.
And giving that kind of all over the place sounds from all these different instruments, I thought was great. And I really loved the music. To me, it felt like something that I could relax to, but it wasn't too slow. It was still upbeat. And I thought they made a great choice.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely set a tone, a pace. I thought, for the movie that we were watching, I thought it worked really well. I thought Mark Gordon, I thought he composed. It was a good bed to the events that were unfolding, and it helped paint Nebraska. It caught those beautiful black and white hues and shadows, but it played like a shadow. It wasn't overbearing. It really did play like a really great bed. So, yeah, I like the music a lot.
This is something where I would love the soundtrack to be on in the background. Like if I was on a hike
There you
and
go.
looking, thank you, Marissa. If I was on a hike and walking through nature, like this would make me feel life is beautiful and weird. Do you know what I mean? And that's how I feel about it. So I know we've spoken about how we feel that this would last and whether we think that this movie would have been different if it was in the past or whether it was put out in the present. But what do you guys think? Will this have long-term effects and what will its legacy be?
Well, we'll start right to left. Yeah, or stage left or right.
As I said, I think that because it came out now, that was the best timing that it could have possibly came out, and I do think that it will have long-term effects. I don't know about awards. I know that I think that he deserves Best Actor. I think that for sure. I think it should be an Academy Award, but that's just my initial
So
feeling.
legacy-wise, I have to chime in on this.
I love it.
Okay, here's the thing with legacies today. It's so much harder to have them because we have so many films now.
Right. Yeah.
So think about all these films we flipped out about, guys, in the last 5 years that we don't even talk about anymore.
Oh, I know.
It's not like it used to be.
No.
So, because there's so many movies. Now, the good news is that with Alexander Payne, he looks at all of his films as one entire body of work. Whereas Woody Allen wants to do a movie a year.
Right.
Because he just loves the process. Alexander's looking at it like a box set.
Sure.
Right.
So why this should have longevity is because of Alexander. Is like when we study all of his films,
Right.
the few that he's going to have, he wants them all to be 4-star films. That's what he's shooting for. So that's why it has a shot. It's always tough to talk legacy because we have so many movies now. It's not like 10 or 15 years ago, a movie was a classic. You come out and it was something you talk about for many, many years to come. But think of all the amazing movies that just kind of come and go now.
You're right, but again, I'll say that because of the distribution patterns have changed so much that movies. I agree with you, but I do agree with everything you said, Kevin, but I think part of it is because movies aren't in theaters as long as they used to be. They don't play out as long. And I think for a movie like Nebraska, I said at the beginning of the show, as far as an Academy Award goes, look, they can nominate 10. This movie's going to be nominated for Best Picture. Bruce Dern should be nominated for Best Actor. I think Best Actor this year is going to be one of the toughest categories this year, period. Whether he can win or not, but he's going to be nominated.
Sarah, what do you think?
My hope is that, honestly, there are such good movies out this year. I'm very happy that it was nominated. I think for longevity and for attention, it needs to win at least one. There's so many good movies. Honestly, I don't know if I have a preference yet on what I want it to win. There's a couple more movies I need to see. I haven't seen American Hustle. I haven't seen Wolf of Wall Street. When those come out, then I can kind of pick and choose. But just for the longevity of this movie and for people to talk about it, at this point, you need to be a winner.
Because people just Google Oscar winners. That's what people Google.
It just needs to win one.
And
at least one, and I'm hoping
I've been unwavering in what if I were an Academy member, what I would vote for this year. But
you've seen them all, haven't you? Have you seen American Hustle?
No.
Okay.
But I'm not wavering from my original decision.
So really great talking to you guys.
Yeah,
thank you to Kevin Undergaro who had to run out.
Thanks, Kevin.
And thank you to Marissa Serafini helping us out.
Great
in the
job
booth.
on the board.
I am Roxy Stryer, and if you want to keep this conversation going with me, you can find me at Twitter at Roxy Stryer. What about you guys? Where can we find you?
I'm here at Anatomy of a Movie. You guys comment, respond, let us know what movies we should do and what you think. And as Roxy said, just keep talking about it. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, you can find me in Anatomy of a Movie as well. Go to the movies, watch us after, comment, right? Because what's great about movies, better than any other medium, they're the best things to talk about once they're done and you've watched them. It's cathartic. It's whether it's good or bad. And do it on Anatomy of a Movie, do it on YouTube, do it on iTunes, comment. Let us know what you think of the movie.
Absolutely. That's the best way to reach us. And I believe you guys are actually here tomorrow discussing
Dallas Buyers Club.
Dallas Buyers Club and Inside Llewyn Davis.
So if you guys would like to tune in for that, feel free to do so. And until then, have a great day.
See you at the movies.
Woo, see you at the movies.
Producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the rest of the Anatomy of a Movie staff, we would like to thank you for listening and subscribing to the show. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to email or tweet us. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been Anatomy of a Movie.
Thanks for watching Anatomy of a Movie on YouTube. For more on your favorite movies, subscribe to our channel here, and be sure to let us know what you think in our comment section below here. Bye.